casual conversations. It's been a minute.
Yes, it has been far too long, but we've been busy.
Yeah, and today there's snow, even though it's April and spring, and we
That's
started.
my Easter outfit on.
It was a beautiful snow, though.
Yeah,
What it is, it was softly falling down this afternoon.
Agreed. I wasn't too disgruntled. It was pretty. So thank you, both of you, for making time. I really appreciate it, and wanted to start by sharing. Let me just read the email that thank you for forwarding on to the staff, and I'll read it so we can launch our conversation from there. So, dear FCL staff, you have all played a part in the significant transformation that has occurred within the walls of the FCL over the last months. Your contributions are seen and felt each day as you ensure patrons feel a sense of belonging and connection to the FCL. Your commitment to success is evident in each program and with every community outreach effort you make possible in our community. Genuinely, thank you. So much has been learned over the course of a year. Learning experiences are not always planned, easy, or expected, but growth does come from each experience. The key is to emerge successfully from each of these experiences. FCL staff, you are succeeding. When the sum of all parts of an organization are committed to succeeding, a leader is empowered towards success as well. This message is to announce that in support of the continued success of the FCL, Kelley Siegrist has been named Library Director for the FCL. Yay! Kelley has been a highly skilled library staff member and leader for the FCL for over 2 decades, with over 30 years of combined library experience. Kelley has the Master of Library and Information Sciences from Wayne State University, a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Michigan, is Six Sigma certified, and perhaps most importantly, has been an integral part of the transformational success the FCL is experiencing now. Please welcome me in congratulating Kelley and applaud yourselves for all you have done in support of the FCL. Sincerely, me. Mm-hmm. So we are so excited to have this chance and for you to be willing to talk with us about what's next and more about you, more importantly. This is a chance to do it. So are you okay with Ernie and I asking you a few questions?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Okay, great. I think that I'll start a little bit with your background. I think patrons have obviously seen you around the library over the past 2 decades. Yes. And in both of our branches, as you've worked in both of those branches. Mm-hmm. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your career path here at the Farmington Community Library?
Okay, well, I started at the library way back in 1991. I was a page shelving books. My daughter was less than a year old at that time. She's now 31. And then from there, I worked in the administrative office as the person answering the phone and for the administrative staff. And then from there, I went to children's department where I was a library assistant doing storytime programming and that kind of stuff. And then during that time, I got my bachelor's degree in history, and then I became a paraprofessional in children's. Then I moved to the YA, young adult department, and that's when I moved to the branch. Became the young adult librarian there. Worked part-time for a long time, then went to full-time, and then from there I became branch head at the Liberty Street location, and that's where I've been until last year when I was appointed as interim director, and now I'm director. So.
And I took note in all of that, Kelley, that you were raising a family like that. That's not easy to find a career path, to find success, to keep pushing forward and raise a family. So there's a lot of levels of success in all of that I was hearing.
And that's why I worked part-time for a long time, because I was, they were young and I wanted to be home with them. So
yeah, and I think that's a shared story probably with some of your staff now. Mm-hmm. Really talented, finding the balance between what matters outside of the library and within the library. Mm-hmm. So love that as a role model. We okay to move on? I have questions.
Yes.
I have curiosities. And mostly, the last time we had a conversation, Ernie and I really were digging in to be authentic and lean into the difficulties of what the community has seen and what the staff has seen and what you have seen. in some extraordinary circumstances, both those that occurred globally with the pandemic, and then also challenges for everybody to start to evaluate who they were as a professional and a leader for this institution, for the FCL specifically. Would love to get more from you about what your experience was like navigating staff during a global pandemic and so much organizational shift and change.
Um, so the way I address that is that I always had input from the supervisors. I never made any decision because the supervisors had the pulse of their staff. So they knew who was thinking what and whatever. So we made decisions together. And maybe not everybody was happy with all the decisions that we made, but at least we had the pulse of what most people were thinking, and we could align ourselves that way. So that was when I was appointed. That was my first take, is like, okay, we're gonna move through this together, and let's see who comes along, and that kind of stuff. So that was how I addressed that. The first things that we did, and listening to staff and stuff, because we did have those listening sessions in the very beginning, was the staffing. We needed to get more staff in here, because that was causing so much stress. They felt overworked with the programming that they were doing, and having to be on desk and not being able to fill shifts on desk. So that's the first thing we did, is to get more staff in here, and key staff, like our IT department, pulling that back and having somebody in-house to address the issues that we were having. The accounting, getting that all set up, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, our community marketing was a huge thing, just trying to come out of the shadow that we were in and bringing positive things back and showcasing our positive stuff that we were doing.
Yeah, and keeping safety on the forefront.
Oh, absolutely.
Acknowledging accessibility and how everybody was going to be, are we remote? Are we hybrid? Are we coming in? That flexibility, even for the staff.
We did do that, yeah.
Has been pretty remarkable. Did that seem easy to transition into, that kind of hybrid experience?
It did. And as you said, it's for the safety of the staff too, because you didn't want them all congregating in one area, right? So we just needed a component to have staff on the desk. But if you weren't scheduled for the desk, then you could, work remotely. We kind of pulled that back now. Most everybody is back in the building. So
yeah. Well, the programming's certainly, I think, been at a best-in-class clip. Like everybody now getting into the groove of like community, connecting again, seeing each other, being there for community events. Right? What would you like to say about? I know that you have some thoughts on what we've been focusing on as a board. I do too, but.
Well, I just think that I really wanted to say thank you around the programming, especially because I've heard comments from many people in the community about the availability of the programming, the appreciation of the fact that we have continued the hybrid approach, which I think was a very smart decision, because we know there are members of the community who are at different places and have different risk factors, and everybody has to make a personal decision. So I just applaud you guys for really making that decision to just fundamentally say, hey, we're going to have a hybrid approach and maintain that for now.
Yeah, come.
All right.
Like a band.
And we were one of the only libraries in the area that was offering in-person programming in the fall. The children's department. We were one of the only libraries, so we were getting people from other communities because they weren't offering in-person programming, and they still wanted that, especially for the children.
Like a lifeline.
Yeah.
So many positive things, and really bolster the confidence and for the future, and so excited for it. So there's some rather large boulders still to move, and I'm wondering what your plans are, because I know you have some around the website. Like, we've received a lot of input from the community over the years, and certainly from the staff.
Yes.
About the website. So we'd love to hear more about your thoughts around that.
Well, we have a whole strategy. And so when we brought Sarah on as the marketing and community relations coordinator, we've never really had a marketing strategy before. So she is designing a marketing strategy. And, we're looking at rebranding. I mean, it's been years since we've even looked at rebranding, and what does that mean? Is that a new mission statement? Is that, all of that? What's our vision and that kind of stuff? So we're looking at that. And then, yes, and all with that, because it all goes into how to put that in place before you can redesign your website. So that will be part of her role too, is to redesign a website.
That would definitely be one milestone in bringing
Absolutely.
I think technology and that plays an integral
That
part
was
as well.
Huge, yes.
So tell more about that.
So Pat came on in June, and
Pat's not here.
Pat is not here.
Pat McCormick.
Pat McCormick.
He came on in June, end of June. I want to say mid-June maybe, and that's just about the time that MVM was wrapping up. Like they were leaving June 30th, and we didn't extend them. So, but he came on and has been spent the last 6 months assessing the situation. We've had some
and fixing
and
things.
Fixing things. I mean,
yes.
He had no information because there was just no knowledge for anyone to share with him. So he had to learn it. And kudos to him because, when everything goes down and you don't know where to look for things, it was like, oh my goodness. But he figured it out very methodically, figured it out. And he has plans too for upgrading our network and our Wi-Fi and stuff, which will make it better for staff it will be faster, hopefully, and moving things off site so it's not bogging down our webpage and that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff happening with him too.
Yeah. And I think for myself, the idea around all of that being, I think, like a triad of connecting not only the infrastructure, how we allow the community to access it, but we decided as part of that triad to really start rocking and rolling with some partnerships in the community. That because of COVID, we didn't, the library didn't have an opportunity, but I think there's even more of a reimagined connection going on with those partnerships.
Yes, and so we'll be at the farmers market again in the summer. Of course, we're in the parade, but it's very easy to be involved in the city of Farmington because you're right next door, and we've spent a lot of time cultivating that relationship and have made headways. It is very, and we're part of the DDA. That library is part of the DDA because it's in that 1 square mile. It's a little harder to get into the city of Farmington Hills because they're not so structured like that. They don't have a DDA type of thing. That kind of is where we want our focus to be, is to be more in Farmington Hills like we are in Farmington, but.
Ernie, I'd love to hear from you more about what you think the connection and support from the board might be for the future of the library.
Well, since joining the board, I think maybe 8 months ago or so, I've observed really folks using their talents and skills across the board table, and it's very exciting to see folks step into their wheelhouse, and we have active strategic planning in the works right now. I think about all of the folks that worked on our personnel committee to really try to cure staff issues. So the board has been really, I think, focused on shoring up the internal operations of the library from a structural basis point. Now that we've done that, I think we've got our name badges and we're ready to go. We're ready to get into the community and see what opportunities are there to make sure that this community is transforming and is ready for the workforce of the future. Because I think really that's probably the biggest role that we're going to be playing amongst all the things that the library does, is making sure that folks from zero to whatever are ready for whatever's coming next.
Yeah, I will say for all the board members that were present at the last board meeting, the vote was unanimous for you to be the director. That certainly bodes for not only the cohesiveness of the vision that we all share, right, for the immediate future, but does speak to the heart of it, of thriving together and really starting to look to the future of the library and how how we function.
And I feel that I appreciate all of your support and over this past year. And I think the staff do too. It's much calmer. You're easier, you're more accessible. You're easier to speak to talk to, that kind of stuff. And so I think knowing that has brought a sense of calmness to the staff too. And I want to say that there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to take place. And so it looks kind of like we're internally focused, but that infrastructure needs to happen in order for staff to feel comfortable and be at a place where innovation or whatever can take place. So we had to work on the internal stuff. And so it might not be so transparent out in the community what we're working on.
I think though, to be honest, Kelley, it's evident.
Okay.
Like for real. Like you're able to see like the fruits of the labor. So I appreciate that though, because that is important for people to know that this isn't just happening out of thin air. Right. This is intentional. This is planned. This is investing in the infrastructure. This is part of making this an even more thriving community library. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that point for sure. Well, thank you to both of you for joining me.
Thank you. I'm very excited about what we can achieve in the future. So we all, most of us on the staff, all of us, look forward to that. Like the sky's the limit. So let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.